Good morning, everyone. I would invite you to rise in body or in spirit and turn in the teal hymnal to hymn number 1012, When I Am Frightened, hymn number 1012. When I am frightened, will you reassure me? When I'm uncertain, will you hold my hand? Will you be strong for me? Sing to me quietly. Will you share some of your stories with me? If you will show me compassion, when I may learn to care as you do, then I may learn to care. When I am angry, will you still embrace me? When I am thoughtless, will you understand? Will you believe in me, stand by me willingly? Will you share some of your questions with me? If you will show me acceptance, then I may learn to give as you do. Then I may learn to give. When I am troubled, will you listen to me? When I am lonely, will you be my friend? Will you be there for me? Comfort me tenderly. Will you share some of your feelings with me? If you will show me compassion, then I may learn to love as you do. Then I may learn to love. Thank you. Please be seated.
Excuse me, has anyone seen Ennui? She's right here. Ennui, you are supposed to be doing the welcome. Disgust, do you have anything to say?
Ew, I'm not going there.
Sadness, are you gonna chime in here? Fear. I guess it's all up to me then. Ennui, if you don't get up here right now, I am going to take away your phone. Get over here.
Oui, c'est moi, Ennui. Bonjour, mes amis. I am the emotion of Reverend Therese. You do not see me too much. She claims she is jamais boring. No, I mean, she's never bored. She was afraid and so sad when she heard I would do the welcome, because every Sunday she says not the boredom. She was a bit disgusted when I showed her my script. So she has replaced it with one that is a bit more joyful. So, et voilà. Merci, Ennui. Welcome and good morning. Indeed, I am Reverend Theresa, the Minister of Pastoral Care, a human holding all these emotions who are joining me today. I am here this Halloween Sunday to welcome you and all your emotions to this morning's service at the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. I don't know if we have been celebrating Halloween in this way since 1865, but we have been gathering as a community of like-minded persons since then. We are a community that is centered in love and strives to bring the values of justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, independence, and generosity alive in ourselves, our community, and in the world. If this is your first Sunday here, you may be wondering just what you have gotten yourself into. But thank you for being here, and I invite you to come back again to see the range of worship experiences First UUAA has to offer. And you can stop by a newcomer welcome in the Redmond Room after the service. It's just outside these doors, up a little ways and on the left. There will be someone there to help answer any questions and tell you a little bit more about this congregation and this faith. For those viewing on live stream, welcome. Maybe you all want to turn and wave to the camera back there so they can see any of you in costume as well. Thank you for joining. If you feel like it, introduce yourself in the chat and greet each other in your virtual space. We invite you to fill out a survey so we can better connect with you. It's at uuaa.org/newcomer survey. One reminder, and this is one of Theresa's favorite times of the year. There is a time change next weekend, so don't forget to turn your clocks back. We fall back, we gain an hour. Don't forget so that you're not sitting out here next Sunday at 8:30 in the morning wondering, where is everybody? Next week also, we will hold our annual service of remembrance, and this is a very moving and special time we hold to honor and name those who have those among us who have died in the past 2 years. And we create a space to remember anyone dear to us. We create a space by creating a memory altar, and I invite you to bring a memento of your loved ones to place on that altar during our annual ritual. So, I will try to keep ennui at bay during our time together this morning, for truly, when we are gathered for worship, when we are gathered in community, we may feel many things, but I hope and pray you are not bored.
Hi. Do you ever feel sad or afraid? Do you ever think about current events, generally speaking, of course? Nothing in particular. Nothing that may or may not be culminating on Tuesday, November 5th. And feel stressed? Yeah, me too. But what do you do when you feel this way? I've tried refreshing my Twitter feed repeatedly for hours on end. I've tried refreshing 538 over and over, and it just doesn't seem to help. So what else can a person do? No, I know what to do. Sometimes it's simply to let myself feel my feelings, to sit with those emotions. Other times it's to reach out to my community, to my friends, to my family, to my congregation, for love and support. And other times it's to choose from a mental menu of options that I have reached for time and again that always make me feel better. For me, it's making music, going for a walk or a run, ideally in the woods, taking a really hot shower and then watching a cheesy romantic comedy for the millionth time under a blanket on the sofa. Now, you may laugh because it's a bit silly, but as someone who spends a lot of time thinking about liturgy, I think of these things, this menu of options, as rituals. And there's comfort in rituals, in repeated action, in speaking or hearing or reading familiar words about which we care deeply and that we know deeply. For this and for so many other reasons, we begin our time together each week with the ritual lighting of a chalice. Today, I would like to invite the chalice sparks to come on up and onto the chancel and to light the chalice here in the sanctuary. As the chalice sparks are lighting our communal chalice, we invite our online community to light a chalice of your own, perhaps sharing in the chat the chalice is lit and from where you're joining us today. Will you please join me as we speak together our chalice lighting words? We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Nailed it. Thanks, Chalice Sparks. Whatever feelings you are carrying with you into this space today, remember that you are surrounded by a community that, through our covenant, weekly renews our promise to help one another, to dwell in peace and to search for truth together, and always to love one another. That is true whether you've been coming here for years or whether you have chosen this very weird Sunday to be here for the first time. So let us join together in speaking the words of our covenant. The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another.
What If by Shel Silverstein. Last night, while I lay thinking here, some what ifs crawled inside my ear and pranced and partied all night long and sang their same old what if song. What if I'm dumb in school? What if they've closed the swimming pool? What if I get beat up? What if there's poison in my cup? What if I start to cry? What if I get sick and die? What if I flunk that test? What if green hair grows on my chest? What if nobody likes me? What if a bolt of lightning strikes me? What if I don't grow taller? What if my head starts getting smaller? What if the fish won't bite? What if the wind tears up my kite? What if they start a war? What if my parents get divorced? What if the bus is late? What if my teeth don't grow in straight? What if I tear my pants? What if I never learn to dance? Everything seems well, and then the nighttime what-ifs strike again. Does anybody in here have some other what-ifs that are on your mind lately? Does anyone want to share one? What if Trump wins the election? That's a big what if for many, many people. I would agree with that. What if the sun forgets to shine? What a good one. Hang on, Talia. What if my costume isn't good? That's a great one. What if I can't stand my job anymore and I have to quit? What was that? What if all the tablets disappear? That would be, I think my children would be very scared of that one. Anything else? Any other what ifs? Yeah. What if my parents finally get me a goat? Okay. Yeah. What if my dad finally gets me a hairless cat? See, the what ifs can be good and they can be a little scary, right? That one's kind of a little of both, I think. Anybody else? Yeah. What if my dog turns into a lion? What if my sister eats all my Halloween candy? Oh, these are really scary. You know, what we're finding out is that what ifs can be about things as small as what to wear to school, and as big as what if the moon falls out of orbit and crashes into the earth? Now, the rational part of our minds, I think, know that the moon's not gonna fall or crash into the earth tomorrow, and also that your dog is probably not gonna turn into a lion. That seems pretty unlikely. But does that mean that we don't worry about it? Of course not. The rational mind is rarely the boss. Our minds can't always tell the difference between the real stuff and the imaginary stuff. And as soon as you let go of one what if, another one pops up to take its place. Our minds are busy. And what happens in our minds can affect how we feel in our bodies. If my thoughts are filled with what ifs, I often feel it in my stomach or in my chest. And when your mind is busy and your body reacts, guess what else happens? Your emotions start to run amok. Anger, fear, disgust, sadness, joy, anxiety, embarrassment, boredom, envy. Each of them has the power to take control and steer the ship. Now here's the big question. Why do we experience all of these emotions? And here's another question. Do you think any of them are good or bad, or do they all kind of fall somewhere in between? Why might what we think of as a bad emotion, like anger or fear, actually serve us?
When you're scared, that can make you be cautious, and it can help you avoid actual danger.
Yes, fear can help you avoid actual danger. Sometimes fear is very, very useful. What's another example? When does anger serve us? It helps you take action, right? Sometimes that righteous anger in particular. If you see injustice in the world, that can be such a motivator, right? Any other comments about how emotions can be both? Yeah. Hey, that's an excellent, excellent example. Boredom can lead to creativity, which is what I always tell my children when they complain that they're bored. So, as we continue to move through today's service, think about these questions. Can we find a way to make space for all of these thoughts and feelings? And how do we allow that space for the stressful stuff without letting it take over? Well, our story for all ages on this Halloween morning is going to help us answer some of those questions. Just a thought, exploring your weird, wonderful, and wacky mind, written by Jason Gruhl and illustrated by Ignacy Font. A happy thought the other day went running through my mind. It crashed into another thought, the scared and worried kind. Then an angry thought blazed in. It wasn't very nice. But it got squashed by two sad thoughts that made that thought think twice. My thoughts, they bounce inside my head from front to back and side to side. Where do they come from? Are they me? Is there no place to hide? Sharks rule! That's gross. I love tofu. Is she from Montreal? My mind, it makes them day and night. Do I create them all? I'm smart. He's old. That stick is brown. Do wombats walk or crawl? They're often weird and sometimes mean. Thoughts really have some gall. Some thoughts are helpful or make us daring. Some thoughts protect and keep us caring. Some thoughts grumble, whine, and pout, while others judge and strut about. But you can't blame minds. It's what they do. They think up thoughts to burp and spew. They take short breaks, but those don't last. They love to think, a think-thought blast. So why sometimes can I see my thoughts and watch them like a story, while other days I'm lost in thought, in mixed-up territory? I wonder if I'm not my thoughts, if I am something more, something in a body With a mind I can explore. Perhaps I'm like the big blue sky, no end in sight, a mile high, and thoughts are puffy, fluffy clouds that float and drift on by. Or maybe I'm the massive ocean, deep and wide, a constant notion, and thoughts are like the waves up top, a stormy, loud commotion. Or are my thoughts like fuzzy sheep that prance and wander, bound and leap, and I am an enormous mountain, steady, strong, and steep. Or maybe I am clear, vast space. I'm everything and every place, and thoughts are whizzing, shooting stars that flee without a trace. Our thoughts, it seems, are little things, while we are grand and spacious, and thinking thoughts doesn't make them true, no matter how audacious. The mind can dance in emptiness and paint with light and fire, can write new tales and sing new songs. What else can mind inspire? Most thoughts can just be left alone, no need to judge or fear. How peaceful would our minds be then? How restful, calm, and clear. In quiet, we can finally hear what there really is to do, and life can help and speak its truth. It moves and acts through you. Oh, wait, I had a thought just now. Let's try my new thought theory. So let me see, what kind is it? Bizarre, fun, rude, or cheery? Oh no, I can't remember. It's fading on the spot. I guess it's gone. It passed on through. Oh well, it's just a thought. The end. Now, I could offer my own words of wisdom here, but I'm not sure I can do better than the author himself, Jason Gruhl. Thoughts are running through our heads all day long, and it's easy to feel like we have to listen to them, especially when there are a lot of them or when they're loud. But the truth is, you're bigger than your thoughts. You are the one watching them, and because of that, you get to decide what to do with them. Sometimes you need to listen to them, like if one tells you not to kiss a crocodile. Please listen to that thought. But most of the time, it's okay to say, thanks anyway, thought, but I've got this. It can be hard to tell the difference sometimes, but with a little practice, you'll figure it out, and in the process, you'll get to know your beautiful mind. And that's a wonderful thought.
Friends, did you know that today is International UU Stewardship Testimonial Day? For all who celebrate, we have a special treat. Today, our very own stewardship testimonial speaker, Pete Mooney. As Pete is coming up here, I want to remind you that our deadline for pledges is November 1st. As of about a week ago, only half of the congregation had pledged. Only half, with a week to go. To me, that means we are a group of procrastinators. So if that is you, I want to gently, but really very strongly gently, encourage you to submit your pledges today if you can. There's a table out at the front near the entrance, or at least do it by November 1st. Our budget for the coming year is based on your pledges. And if we don't reach our goal, then something will not be funded. It's that simple. So help us continue the fabulous work we do, help to continue supporting the staff and the programs we run by renewing or making your first-time pledge. Thank you. And now you'll hear why Pete supports this congregation.
Good morning. My name is Pete Mooney, After hearing Reese Vodka's passionate social justice-themed testimonial last Sunday, I first thought, maybe I could do something similar. Thankfully, my testimonial advisory team, made up solely of my wife Tricia, said maybe adopt an approach less likely to suffer by comparison. So today I thought instead I would talk a bit about my history here and why this congregation is so meaningful to me. 2 decades ago, my belief was that Sundays in the fall were a time best spent poring over the previous day's Michigan highlights. As some of you know, I'm what I would call a casual Michigan fan. And what others, and by others I mean pretty much everyone I've ever met in my entire life, would call someone meaning psychology's DSM handbook for having a fanatical obsession disorder. That said, after 9/11, as we processed our feelings of shock and sadness, Trish and I decided, mostly Trish decided, that we needed to consider looking for a spiritual home. Well, both of us had been confirmed as Catholics in our younger years. Neither of us were attending Mass or really any type of service on an ongoing basis. So off we went on what I call our church crawl, visiting a variety of local congregations over several weeks. A church crawl is much like a pub crawl, with the exception being that you remember a lot more about a church crawl the next day. Our first visit to UUAA was on September 16, 2001, with our minister emeritus, Ken Pfeiffer, speaking movingly about the tragic events of the prior Tuesday. And after a few weeks, and believe it or not, an Excel spreadsheet used to compare and contrast the various places we'd visited, we decided this was the place for us. If asked why I'm still here after 20 plus years, I'd of course point first to the inspiring services and music, but perhaps as much as anything else, to the sense of community that I feel here. This may be a cliche, but I think that for many of us, modern life can become isolating, with more of our free time spent in front of screens and streaming services than with other folks. Coming here Sundays connects me to interesting people who inspire me with their commitment to living their values in ways that I aspire to more than practice, and has resulted in real friendships. This is also a place where I've felt supported during significant and important life events. These include my sister-in-law Christy's memorial right here in 2015, and on a more joyous note, my mother's wedding this past spring at age 83. Thank you. In a small but lovely ceremony presided over by our own Reverend Theresa. So thank you, Theresa, for that. By being on the board of trustees, helping to run the auction, and serving on various committees over the years, I feel like I've contributed in maybe a very small way to a place that I love. And with each thing I do here, I find that my community grows. For all of these reasons, Trish and I were happy to pledge this year, and I would encourage all of you to do so to the extent that you are able. Finally, I discovered that there's enough time on a Sunday to both attend service here and review every highlight from the prior day's game. You just might not get that garage cleaned up anytime soon. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Pete. Overthinking is a vicious cycle. It can be hard to break free when that current pulls you under. And then we start to worry about the worrying, which leads to more paralyzing worry, and on it goes. I see lots of heads nodding in understanding. But there is an effective antidote to overthinking, and it's something that goes a little bit beyond mindfulness practices, although those are also very important. It's taking action in ways both big and small. Our congregation offers so many different ways to demonstrate your commitment to our shared vision. And one of those ways is through the spiritual practice of our weekly offering. There are many ways to give. You can drop cash or checks in the collection baskets as the ushers pass them through the rows. And for those that prefer a digital option, you can text UUAA to 73256, or you can go to uuaa.org/giving. However you choose to give, thank you for your generosity as we strive to make a true difference in our community. Today's offering will now be given and gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward? And as they do, I invite you to rise in body or spirit, wherever you may be, and say with me the words of dedication. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives and these our offerings. Thank you.
When I am frightened, will you stories with me.
Is it my turn?
You can do it.
Joy, you read it. You read it. It's all there.
Sorry, I can't. You have to do it.
But they're all staring at me.
Come on, Fear. You're fine. You can do this.
They're still staring,
I
though.
know, but they all love you. It's okay. You can do it.
Okay. We all feel fear and anxiety at times, and we can have those thoughts running through our heads in a way that preoccupies us. What do you do when you're spinning around in your head with fear or anxiety? Name a few things. What do you do? Breathe. Listen to music. Play with your dog. Go for a walk, be outside in nature. I didn't hear that. Act out the anxiety and nervousness, chewing fingernails. Ask for a hug. Beautiful. Those are some good answers. Thank you for that. Well, I wanted to share with you an experience of being caught up in anxiety and fear that I had in recent months and recent weeks. Some of you know my spouse, Jeff, who's with us today. Jeff just went back into the workforce after 13 years of primarily parenting, which is a big change for me and my family. And by the way, my family knows that I'm sharing this story today, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. And for those who are curious, Jeff is in the daytime on weekdays over at Briarwood Mall on the first floor of Von Maur, doing what I call interior design for retail, which is visual merchandising. So as this possibility was just unexpectedly emerging over the summer, in the late summer we had the protests at home around why should Dad have to go work? He watches out for us and is with us in the daytime or after school. That then began to change as the reality of the job set in. And the first week was a lot of adjustments for all of us, myself included, including getting used to a new routine, making sure the kids got out the door on time for school. And on day number 2, I got asked the question, when can Papa quit? The first week was so hard and challenging and new in its routines for me and the kids. I was convinced, I was like, this is hard. This must be hard for Jeff too. I bet he's miserable. And I waited till the end of the week, and when we could finally catch up after his first full week on the job. And as we were hanging out, I opened up the subject. I said, it was a really challenging week for me and the kids. We had so many things we had to get used to and do differently. And how was it for you? He was having a great time. After 13 years of hanging out and looking out for all of us at home, he got to hang out with other adults for a full week, pursue his own interests. Of course he was having a good time. Well, after the first few weeks, things began to settle down with the kids, and everybody got used to the new schedules and routines, and the kids knew that they're still loved, even if the routine is different, which opened up the space and the capacity for me to feel my feelings. Mind you, I had observed my own father's reactions to my mother's work life when I was a kid, which included feeling abandoned, my father feeling abandoned, my father questioning his patriarchal role in the family because wasn't the money he's earning enough for everybody? If my mom's earning money, well, she might then be independent. She might not need him. She could leave him. What about that possibility? And who would take care of all the chores at home with the expert management that she was able to bring to all of those tasks? Wouldn't everything just fall into neglect and disrepair? And what if he just preferred? What if he just preferred for his male ego to feel better if she just wouldn't work? Couldn't she just do that for him? Even as a kid, I knew that none of that made any sense at all. It was way, way old-timey thinking, antiquated, even oppressive. And when room opened up for me to have my own feelings, I started feeling many of those same things. Am I abandoned now? My husband's at work all the time. When am I going to connect with him? Isn't the money I'm earning enough? What about home? Our life at home, la, 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 on and on. None of which was logical, but the feelings were still there. The feelings were still there. And I couldn't get rid of the feelings, despite all the logic I could bring to possibly to bear to my own situation. And as I perseverated and kept getting stuck in loops around this thinking, I was making the rut deeper and deeper. So much so that the feelings got me wondering, well, if I'm feeling this way, am I feeling this bad? Maybe the relationship's not on track. Maybe our marriage isn't on track. Is that the case? Well, in the middle of all of this chatter, this stuff going on in my head, serendipity happens occasionally, and this was one of those serendipitous moments that that happened precisely because we clergy hoard books incessantly. You don't want to send any of us to a bookstore. We leave with bags and bags of stuff that we don't have the time to read, but we're convinced will become useful one of these days. And they wind up in little stacks around the house or in my office. If you visit me, you will see stacks in my office. And in the midst of being spun up and stuck in my own thinking, I began rifling through a random stack of books. And in that random stack of books happened to be this book called Chatter. I knew from the title, I was like, this is promising. This may be exactly relevant to what I'm going through. And this book, Chatter, is by a professor at University of Michigan named Professor Ethan Cross, in the Department of Psychology. He is a very well-known professor. It is, in fact, precisely on this topic of getting stuck in our own negative thinking. 2021, this book's been sitting in my house for years, and I didn't have the time to look at it until I needed it, and then I happened to find it. So I start to read it, and Professor Cross relays a very similar story to the one that I was in the midst of. In 2011, following an appearance on CBS Evening News to talk about the research he was doing at U of M, he receives an anonymous letter, a death threat. Now, he's a professor, but he's also a public figure. He's not used to this type of thing. It's never happened to him before. He's not sure what to do. He goes to the Ann Arbor police. They tell him not to worry. Public figures get these types of letters, threatening letters, all the time. In the vast majority of cases, it doesn't come to anything at all. Well, the Ann Arbor police telling him he has nothing to worry about, more likely than not, doesn't keep him from thinking of the fact that he's got a wife at home and he's got an infant child, and are they safe? And he starts to get so preoccupied with this question around him and his family's physical safety that he starts sleeping with a baseball bat near his bed. And then in the middle of the night, if there's even the slightest noise, unexpected noise in the house, he's got the baseball bat in hand and he's walking around the house checking each and every room to make sure that somebody hasn't gotten into the house somehow. And he knows in the moment that this is completely illogical behavior, and yet he can't stop how he's thinking and how he's feeling and how he's spun up about this. Well, there's moments when being a research scientist is helpful, and as a research scientist in the field of psychology at U of M, he's able to research the heck out of exactly this phenomenon. And the end result of that research is the book called Chatter, which I just showed you, which we have the benefit of today. Some of the learnings coming out of this research and the book Chatter. First off, this internal nonstop dialogue that we all experience, it is one of evolution's gifts to us. We are able to play out options and choices in our heads, consider what the consequences of taking various courses of action might be. We're able to think through things in our life, process things internally that we need to process. There's a lot of benefits to us for having this mechanism of an internal voice. And it's not always positive. Now, some things to know about this internal voice, this internal dialogue. We talk to ourselves a lot. It is far more than I would ever have guessed. The research shows that 1/3 to 1/2 of our waking lives is us not being in the present moment like this, but instead being in our own internal life. 1/3 to 1/2 of our waking time goes to our internal life, our self-talk. It is such a significant part of our existence, in fact, that psychologists call it our default state. This internal talk, or default state, happens at a much more rapid and intense pace than this type of dialogue or conversation. So to give you a point of reference, this type of speaking, whether it's for a sermon or another public context, we say for people to keep up with you, you typically want to be at a pace of about 100 words per minute. Our internal dialogues with ourselves, our self-talk, happens at 4,000 words per minute. 4,000 words per minute. It's the equivalent, Professor Cross says, of 320 State of the Union addresses playing out in our heads every day. Every day. The psychologists have classified this internal self-talk in a variety of categories. We have soliloquies. We have actual conversations and dialogues. We ruminate. We worry. We free associate, one thought leading to the next, leading to the next, and we absolutely fixate. What the research shows is that our relationship to this inner talk, this inner dialogue, highly corresponds to both our mental health and our physical health, which makes sense because physical health is often deeply influenced by our mental health. In fact, our relationship to our own inner talk, it is a bigger predictor of overall health and well-being than one's relationship to and consumption of alcohol, obesity, and lack of exercise. And those are 3 major predictors of physical health. And what their research is showing is that our relationship to our own inner dialogue is of greater importance than those factors. So what do we, in general, we humans do when we're anxious or fearful? There's a couple of common things, and I'm going to share 2 that are discussed in tremendous detail by Professor Cross in his book. He gives in his book the example of an Olympic athlete, let's say a gymnast, who has spent years, if not maybe a decade or more, practicing the same routines over and over again to the point where they are automatic. There's an internalized memory of everything that's needed. You don't have to even think about it, you just do it until, and we've all seen this when we're watching the Olympics, there's a small misstep. Something small goes wrong. And the moment something small goes wrong, our human brain, the way it works is we hyper-focus, we narrow in immediately on the problem or the issue, even if it's small. And what that means for Olympians is they get so hyper-focused on the small mistake. What you see moments later then in the routine are major mistakes starting to happen. They lose the automaticity because of the hyper-focus on something that just went wrong. This is one of the things that we are challenged by as human beings. Our hyper-focus on a problem or an issue or a quandary becomes a problem in and of itself. The other thing we do is we will seek social support. We will talk to trusted others in our lives, people we love and trust to help us and hold us through problems or issues, which can be both helpful and it can be less than helpful. It can be unhelpful. We're going to return to that in a moment, but let's first look at this issue of getting hyper-focused. Professor Cross says that getting stuck in that narrow thinking is what keeps us in a rut. It keeps us spinning around and around and stuck in the same thought process over and over again. The solution is you doing what we have language for, gaining perspective, zooming back out so we can look at the larger picture. The problem is when you are, in fact, hyper-focused on a single issue or narrow problem, it is very hard on your own to zoom back out and gain the distance that you need. So Cross and his colleagues, they suggest several hacks, several shortcuts to try to give yourself distance again. The first, he says, is called being a fly on the wall, which essentially is like trying to look at your life like somebody, like as if you were outside of it. Practice being a fly on the wall and watching yourself. What would you think about the set of issues or problems that that individual, i.e. you, is going through? Try and talk to yourself about it as if you're an observer. Be a fly on the wall. It helps one gain mental distance. There's also the hack of trying to gain temporal distance, time-based distance. What's the history of this type of issue or problem? Has it been worked through before, earlier in your workplace or in your relationships? Do you have an established track record of progress over time? Or can you time travel a bit? Can you imagine 10 or 20 years into the future? Would you be thinking about this at all? Is it that important an issue that it would still be impacting your life 20 years from now? Time travel or time-based distance. We can also very powerfully, he points out, reframe issues and challenges in our lives. When we're hyper-focused, we start to think and believe that the narrow issue we're spinning around is an existential threat to our well-being, maybe even our existence. Instead of viewing the thing as a threat, can we coach ourselves into viewing the issue as a challenge to be worked through? Life has many challenges. A challenge has appeared. This too will be figured out. Reframing is an important tool. Normalization. Can we look around us and tell ourselves, this kind of thing happens? There are many families with both parents working, being out in the workforce. This is a very common experience that many families have to figure out, that others go through. Then there's this hack that I hadn't really thought of before, which he calls emotional distancing. And it's a tool that Fred Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, that Fred Rogers routinely drawed on and talked about. It is talking to yourself by name in the third person. So as opposed to I'm going through something, look, Manish, you're going through something right now. The brain is so used to hearing your own name in the third person that if you use that on yourself, your brain automatically shifts perspective and starts to look at the thing as if it was from the outside. It is such a predictable and reliable hack, Professor Cross says. He says, just try it and see what will happen. This, in fact, was the hack he used in his baseball bat scenario as he's roaming around the house. He began talking to himself using his own name. Ethan, what are you doing? You know better. It's 3 a.m. Now, I read this, and I thought, well, it worked for the professor. I don't know. Maybe I should try this too. So I waited till the next time that I was starting to feel a little spun up and getting caught up in my thinking about feeling abandoned. And then I said, Manish, you know better. This is just you're getting used to a new schedule. Nothing's wrong in your marriage. Everything is fine. Many families have to figure this kind of thing out. It worked. I can't really tell you why, except that I think it does. You look at your life or your issue in a slightly different way because of it when you talk to yourself in the third person. By name, by the way. That's the trick. Now, this other thing that we commonly do, seeking social support, this one's tricky. And I learned a few things about pastoral care from reading Professor Cross's book. So he says, of course we go out and seek support from trusted folks, from loved ones when we're in the midst of a problem, an issue, a quandary. That is normal. And there are times when seeking support and reassurance and being told that we are loved, that is the only thing that is possible. Nothing else can be done. Such situations are often ones of grief or death or loss in our lives. The most anybody's going to be able to do is just accompany us, witness us, and tell us that they love us and they're there for us. But there are other situations, and these are the ones where we're really spinning. Maybe it's a work issue. Maybe it's an issue in a relationship with a significant other or a spouse. We get all caught up, and we start going round and round the problem over and over again, and we can't find our way out. He points out that being told that you are loved and cared for is good. It's not a bad step, but maybe it's not enough. It's especially not enough if the friend, the trusted person you're talking to, not only is telling you that you're loved, but they start emphatically agreeing with you. Yeah, that boss sounds like a jerk. Oh my God, your spouse disrespected you like that? I can't believe that. What are they thinking? Oh my goodness. The trusted person, in offering their emphatic underlining and exclamation point of the thing that you're already thinking, is spinning you up even further. That's called co-rumination. It doesn't solve a thing. It makes that form of circular rut thinking even worse, even more stuck. So what's needed in these moments, and Professor Krauss draws on a science fiction analogy here, which I love. He draws on Star Trek, which made my Star Trek heart happy. And he says, you need in these moments both Kirk and Spock. Kirk being the epitome of emotion and irrationality, even just by the seat of the pants, doing whatever his heart's telling him to do in that moment. Spock being the epitome of logic, of thinking things through carefully, paying attention to all the facts. Yes, we need to be told that we are loved, that we are reassured, that we have social support, and we need the side coaching from that trusted person to help us gain the distance that we're not able to get on our own, to help us zoom out. So asking those types of questions, I wonder what else that person, that loved one in your workplace or in your significant relationship, I wonder what else they might have been dealing with that day. You think it was only this interaction that you had? Maybe there was more. Maybe they had a bad day outside of that. Oh, I wonder what else the manager at your job is needing to manage beside that one interaction that you had. Maybe there's more in that situation. Have you had to work through problems before with that manager? Has it tended to be okay when you've had to work through problems? So helping the person gain a little bit of distance from their situation will help them see more fully the picture of their circumstances. That's part of getting unstuck in getting out of the hyper-focus. This is one of the beautiful things. It's often here in the pulpit that I am reminded of the power of community, and this is yet another one of these topics where I feel I and maybe we are reminded of this again. When we are stuck in our own thinking, when our own thinking is convincing us that our life is awful and there's nothing we can think of to do about it, we can help one another get unstuck. We can help one another be like a rose, gently unfurling and being the best that we can be, learning how to blossom and grow together. May we hold that in our hearts. May we take some of Professor Cross's wisdom with us as we go past this Sunday. May it be so.
Will you rise as you're comfortably willing and able and turn in our gray hymnal to hymn number 396, I Know This Rose Will Open, hymn number 396. I know this rose will open, I know my fear will burn away, I know my soul will unfurl its wings, I know this rose will open, I know this rose will open, I know my fear I know this rose will open. I know this rose will I know this rose. I know my fear will I know my I know my soul. I know my I know this rose. I know I know this rose. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
Loved ones, as you head out into this new week on behalf of your cast from Inside Out 2, go forth carrying the complexity of all those emotions, that rich inner life that we have. Carry it deeply and well with you, and know that when there are inevitably those times that we get a little bit stuck in our own thinking, we can't see a way out, we start digging ourselves into a rut, know that you're not carrying any of that by yourself. You don't need to carry any of it by yourself. We are there to help one another and support one another. Go forth holding this community's love in your heart until we are together again. May it be so. Amen.